So, yeah, a bunch of small things. Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley going to fight.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited for that one.
I watched, they just had the Showtime thing. I clicked through. And, of course, I don't care about Tyron's parts. I'm interested in Jake because, Tyron's a 39-year-old fighter who was most interesting to me several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But Jake is interesting to watch. And what I did think was, of course, there's a ton of production behind this, a lot of thought to the story arc and all this. But if any of that, if you're to cut through any of that and believe things, which I don't know one can, but there is the background of a story of Jake as someone who was really needed discipline in order to not be the bad guy forever. Like that boxing, he doesn't say exactly, but he kind of says saved his life.
Mm-hmm.
And that it made him a better person that did all these things. And
has it made him a better person? Has he stopped doing shenanigans since he started boxing?
I think he thinks so. It gave him, what he said in the thing is that, it was about views and this and that, and it still, still wants to succeed and still wants to knock people out. But it just, it gave him something he had to do. It put him in a place where he was wearing himself out constantly. And he thinks that it's been good for him. So I can't attest to his character, but I do know that there's that phenomenon that some people say that joining the military,
I was just going to say the military
was the best thing that ever happened to them because of the strict discipline that it imposed on their life that was necessary. And I don't count myself in that group of people who would do well or benefit from that. But
you hate authority. So
yeah.
Although I'm sure Jake hated authority.
I'm not as wild, rambunctious, or I guess dangerous.
Yeah, you're just the guy that's going to write a magnum opus against authority.
Yeah,
you're going to publish something. You're not going to do anything violent.
Exactly.
You're just going to write a philosophical treatise about why the authority is wrong.
Yeah, and I guess there's this. I don't know them that well because they don't make up a lot of my inner circle, but I've seen and knew at a distance young men with anger or frustration, lacking in reason and purpose, who have really done well with discipline.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to make of that, but I was just like, oh, wow, this is it's a personality type that I don't often account for. And when I see that behavior, it doesn't occur to me like what you need is to just wear your batteries out like crazy in the pursuit of a physical activity with a harsh schedule that locks you in for a period of time.
Yeah, it's not a cure-all.
No.
I think there's some people that go into the military because they have that anger and then they don't necessarily do well with the discipline part, or they go overseas and do things you wouldn't want them to do, or there's people that take up boxing and just start doing bar fights. I think of Mike Perry, who's a wild MMA fighter, starts training MMA, I'm sure has all the discipline and coaches and stuff like that, and then it's just out there dropping N-bombs and punching 65-year-olds in the face.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like it's reined him in. Now, maybe, that was a couple years ago, but it's, I agree with you, but I also don't want to overstate that this is an amazing cure that always works type thing. I think just some people it helps rein in, and other people it just teaches them to hit more accurately and harder.
An arrow in the quiver, I suppose, if you're ever a parent or something out there. And I have heard stories of, young kids even that are just in first or second grade and they're frustrated, they're not doing well, they're being bullied, and they just go to the local karate thing. Mm-hmm. And for them, that's enough. So wasn't something that I experienced in my life, but it was, this is something that really helps other people. Interesting. Our friend sent me an article from the New York Times.
Okay.
It's on dirty work, not physically dirty, but morally dirty work, that talks about how, as a society, we're complicit in the factory farms and the immigration officials that might have done. I don't know what they did. That they just used them as an example.
Sure.
Prison guards and all that sorts of things. And there's a couple things that were in there that were subtle that I wanted to talk about. One is at the end they talk about sort of what can be done, and it just gives one example of a group of people who. I don't know if it's a veteran at the end of the article. They sort of are having this community thing where they gather around and they say, we did this, we put you in this position, we take responsibility for having put you into war or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I was conflicted because I found that, one, a really nice thing to do to recognize that person isn't clear, like that person is operating inside of a world and had a limited set of options or was encouraged to do that. But it also, the seeming undifferentiation of responsibility, like the lack of individual responsibility and the complete resorting to we did this seemed false.
This was in the military?
No, this was in like a community center. So, for example, I can try to get the exact article and I'm recalling it, but think like a veteran goes out to war, does things that he was ordered to do, kills people, comes back to his community, is messed up about it. The community has some sort of healing thing where they have this event, they get around, they say, we did this, we sent you there, we share this burden.
I think the problem with the military is they get you in with one thing before they ask you to do another. I know a guy who was a Navy SEAL who went in there because he was going to try to defend his country and do the right thing, high integrity, do what's right. You know, this was probably shortly after 9/11, and then got a mission. He, trained all the way through to Navy SEAL and was active, was doing SEAL missions, and they asked him to do something he did not want to do. And he said, I don't want to do this. He said, if you don't, you will be dishonorably discharged. So he did it, and then was really fucked up about it and ended up having to get discharged anyway because he had massive PTSD from it. And I think, sure, that guy had individual opportunities to opt out where he could have just said, okay, dishonorably discharge me. But I think that's tough because he's now in the military system. He's not sitting around with us. He's surrounded by military people.
Sure.
And I think that if that was the mission they told him he was going to run when he was enlisting, when he was they were saying, hey, do you want to sign up for the military? He goes, yeah. He goes, okay, great. Here's how it's going to look for the next 5 years. We're going to do this training, these missions, and this mission. He might not have said, I'm in.
Sure.
So I do think it's tough because it is such a well-oiled machine for indoctrinating you. And not that it is an emotionally abusive relationship, but one of the keystones of emotionally abusive relationships is to separate you from your other influences, because we as humans don't have a really strong ability to just know the truth without having to ping off other people. And the military does put you in the military machine where if you do have a moral issue, who do you turn to? You're going to have to turn to other military people, most likely, especially about a mission that I'm sure was classified. And so I think he didn't want to do it, felt it was wrong, but that's a really tough thing to do, is to eat the dishonorable discharge after working all the way up to a Navy SEAL and being told by your superiors who you respect, this is, you're not looking at this the right way, this is for the greater good.
Yeah.
And then doing it and going, fuck, I was right, and this was awful, and I have to live with these images in my head of whatever it was that went down, which I don't know because he wouldn't talk about it. So yeah, I do think there are examples I can think of where it's not necessarily fair to be like, oh, you should have just known to not do the thing that you're upset that you did.
Oh no,
or whatever.
I totally agree with that. So to be clear, what I think that the responsibility does extend far beyond the individual.
Yeah.
I guess what I was thinking is the undifferentiation of, like, one of those people in that community, Lord knows, might have protested against the war, voted against the war, been a senator who was active, who was filibustering, and probably not a senator, but that there's a difference between that person and the person who was not yet old enough to do anything at the time. And so while I understand this collective coming together, and I do believe, to your point, that there needs to be less individual accountability for these sorts of social ills that we have, there still needs to be differentiation amongst who is responsible, and I don't think it is evenly distributed in society. For instance, to people who were not born, to those who were against, those who actively, and so that was all. I was like, I think you're onto something with the fact that it's not just you, but I think you're off in saying, like, we all did this, because while that's a very sweet sentiment, some of you weren't born at the time, or might have fought against this, and I think it is important to maintain some sort of individual sense of differentiation while operating in a collective.
Sure. I imagine the exercise is more like we are supposed to represent the whole country. Like when I say we're responsible, probably what I'm saying to that soldier isn't I, Ben Altman, am responsible. I'm just saying I'm a representative for this exercise. Kind of like when you go to a personal development thing and you're supposed to talk to someone and they represent your dad or the person that molested you or whatever. Mm-hmm. They act as a representative for you to talk to.
Yeah.
So the exercise might just be, hey, we're all going to come together and hug you, and we're going to represent
the nation,
the country that you defended. And so in that sense, maybe you're not supposed to be Charlie Hooper. You're just supposed to be one of 20 people that are standing in for the whole nation so the person can get the metaphorical experience.
Yeah. And I think, yes, that makes that to me, I guess more comfortable with the ritual of it and like the reintegration back into the community and saying you're not alone in this, as a literal statement of we all did this. I go, well, we'll hold the phone. Like not that this person needs to stand alone, but that some of you don't belong here. Some of you, like I said, weren't born at the time, and we're just finishing a 20-year war. Like to hold a 6-year-old responsible, just people, they were 2 years old when 9/11 happened or something. Seems to miss something.
I imagine it's meant to be more metaphorical than literal.
Hope that you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to see more like this and have us do more podcasts, we are 100% funded by our generous patrons. And if you'd like to contribute, there's a link in the description, and we'll have one pop up on the screen right here so that we can do more podcasts where we have fun conversations and hopefully some deep ones like this. Either way, hope that you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.